everyone, so we're going to get started here. Again, this is John Paul at POS Portal. Welcome to today's webinar. We're going to be discussing how you can really realize a quick time to value by using a cloud-based industry-specific CRM solution. So for us at POS Portal, that's P2, which we're going to be focused on discussing and showing some examples of today. Real quick, in terms of our agenda and a few housekeeping sort of tips or items just to point out. So we're going to be looking at some challenges that not only ISOs and other acquirers face, but organizations as a whole when looking at CRM solutions. We'll then talk about the CRM Marketplace. So there's many different solutions out there. We'll look at some and kind of talk a little bit about what we've done on top of the Salesforce platform specifically. Then we'll talk really about how you can, as an organization, accelerate your time to value. So we'll talk about what time to value actually means, why it's important for any business out there, and overall share some examples of not only accelerating that process across any technology solution, but really from a CRM perspective, talk about how you can speed up that process and realize value quickly. And then we're going to take a somewhat different approach than we typically do. We're going to open it up to the audience in terms of what aspects of P2 make sense to kind of dive a little bit deeper into. I know we only have an hour here together on this call, but we'll kind of talk about the core value of P2, walk through a demonstration, but we'll again pose back to the audience that's here with us all today, figure out which items specifically of the 5 that I'll lay out that everyone wants to kind of dive deeper into, and we'll kind of take it on that way. And then at the end we'll have time for any questions that come up. And to that point, from a housekeeping perspective, we're actually not going to be unmuting the lines at the end of the call. So for all questions, both as we're going through the presentation as well as those that come up at the end, please type them into the comments or the chat box as part of the GoToWebinar or GoToMeeting experience, and we'll tackle them that way. All right, let's get going. We have a lot to cover. So a little bit of background real quick on POS Portal. I was looking at a lot of the attendees today. I think most of you are familiar with POS Portal. But if not, we've been around for the last 14 years. Again, we're super agnostic in this space. We're not an ISO. We're not a processor. We really have multiple lines of business from equipment sales, that bulk equipment sales channel, working with different OEMs, if you will. We have a tablet POS, mobile POS sort of solution or bundle that we're going to market with now. We handle deployment services for some clients. We have software experience with not only P2, but an earlier version of that we refer to as P1, which was deployed at some large organizations in the early 2000s. Roughly, though, we have 3 locations. Our headquarters are here in Sacramento, where we're sort of broadcasting from today. We have over 150 full-time employees. And specific to P2, which we're going to be discussing today, we have about 140 customers. Most of them are ISO offices. And as you can see the stats below, there's quite a few folks and merchants being managed within the solution. So possible challenges, it's sort of universally acknowledged by a lot of folks out there that the first CRM deployment is more likely to fail than succeed. There was actually a 2013 survey by an organization called the Merkle Group Incorporated, and they found that 63% of all CRM initiatives actually fail. And the reality is that really the first time around, mistakes are going to be made. The results may be less satisfying than you had expected. As the slide here kind of points out, no business knows exactly what to expect and where it's going to go in the future. I think especially in this merchant acquiring payments industry, change is happening every day before us, so we all understand that. But that's not, no reason to turn your back on CRM for life. In many cases, those organizations that have been maybe burnt by their first implementation, sometimes they often struggle to pick up the courage to try again. But really, there's a lot of takeaways from that. You can learn from the good, you can learn from the bad aspects of that first experience, so that you do get it right the next time. So some of these items here, good reasoning, to talk a little bit deeper about that piece specifically. The first time around, it's really easy to get caught up in the moment. You spend too much time and energy on the wrong things. You lose focus of the real objectives. And really, sometimes clients forget to ask themselves, why is the business even investing in CRM to begin with? Is it to increase revenue? Is it to cut costs? Possibly both. So, sadly, in the excitement around new tools such as mobile and cloud-based access to information for sales staff out in the road, and integrating, with social media, it's really far too easy to forget what those goals are. So, as a result of that, here we are now 6 to 9 months down the road. The investment has yet to deliver any real benefits. So, overall, to this point, it's essential to continually reassess, focused and overall retained perspective on what are the fundamental requirements. Why, overall did you guys make a decision to move that direction? The wrong partner, it's obvious that no relationship will succeed if there's sort of a mismatch or not a good fit there. So from a CRM perspective, there are many potential traps and pitfalls to avoid. The right partner can sort of steer or ensure that the right approach to the project is being taken and overall reduce the impact or the issues that might fall on your business. So, as an example there, it's sort of tempting to use the chance to automate and streamline processes to, let's just say, reduce administrative overhead. But does that actually improve the client relationship? Does it enhance lead generation? Does it drive up conversion rates? Does it cut costs, deliver benefits across the board? Or is it really just a small improvement for, the day-to-day activity of maybe one or two people on your team? So, overall you want to look at that and realize that, any changes that do not deliver either additional revenue or cost reduction should probably not be considered, and certainly they should not be prioritized. From a distraction standpoint, there's no doubt that CRM has become really far more usable in recent years, from the availability of cloud-based solutions that provide anywhere and really anytime access to information, to the ability to use mobile devices to immediately update customer information after a sales call. The process of managing customer relationships is faster and really a lot more slicker than ever before. But these features as well can also be a distraction from, going back to our earlier point, those core objectives that we've identified. So a good example of that would be, for a customer with, let's say, 1,000 merchants, or for an ISO with 1,000 merchants, I should say, but really no idea what each had purchased last year, what services or products they had gone with, or what they're likely to buy next year. Overall, the ability to talk to them via Twitter or Facebook, it's completely irrelevant. So that's not of any value to that ISO or that organization. In terms of taking responsibility, like any relationship, success depends on people in your organization that are stepping up, they're taking on that responsibility. And just as no one can take a part-time approach to a relationship and expect it to succeed, a CRM project is far more likely to be successful if it is the sole responsibility of an individual. So, overall, one of our takeaways here at POS Portal is, for a lot of our clients where they've had success, it's typically, in many cases, not just a part-time person who's assigned to that CRM project, because in many cases their time is going to be then competing with other projects, other resources. So, done well, CRM can definitely transform the way that the business operates, from client interaction to sales, marketing activity, and overall from just a lot of the leaders on the line today within these organizations, effective change management is really essential. It needs to be tackled. You need to be thinking about how you're going to manage change. And to the point of taking responsibility, when you actually dedicate an individual to overseeing this change, in conjunction with the right partner, don't get me wrong, it makes really a massive difference to what the outcomes are for the project. It eases the process of this operational change across everybody, and it also reinforces the message regarding what are the expected CRM outcomes. And lastly, on this slide here, learning from the past, no relationship is perfect. We get that. I think you all get that as well. Definitely takes work, commitment, dedication to get the best from both sides. So, while there is a perception out there that CRM has been around for some considerable time and that overall it's not that difficult to implement, the reality is that, again, the first-time failure is a high probability, but at worst it's a really healthy and really good learning opportunity. So, there's always some positive aspects to take away from this first implementation that lead to good outcomes. And, success the second time around is about taking the positives from that first experience that you may have already experienced or I guess dealt with, and being really objective about what are the negatives, and that could also include the role that your business had played in that outcome. So, just to conclude on this slide, I know we spent a little bit of time talking about this just to kind of set up what we're going to be discussing today. But again, I think a takeaway is while there's the value to understanding what went wrong in the past and making those changes going forward, I think it's important just to point out that not all relationships or CRM solutions can be saved. But to that point, for the success of the business, really whatever you do, don't let the relationship drag on beyond, I should say, its sell-by date. So we understand that it may be a wrench to walk away from that first implementation, but the business has changed, it's grown, it's evolved, and just like your first love, as the image kind of shows here, the first system you buy may not overall stand the test of time, and there's plenty of solutions out there definitely to fall in love with. So another question we also get is really around, should you build something? Does it make more sense to buy it? We get this a lot within POS Portal here relative to P2. I think a lot of ISOs, a lot of acquirers have headed down the path, or at least given thought to it. You might have some resources on your team. It overall, from your perspective, makes sense to go and build something. This article with folks after the fact, but there's a quote from an article that I pulled talking about making or buying a technology solution like this, and you guys can read it there. But in the entrepreneurial-friendly environment of today, it can seem like the best option. However, it's often easier said than done. So there's a link here on the very bottom below the image. We actually held a build versus buy specific to CRM webinar back in, I want to say last summer or maybe last fall. And really the event kind of painted a picture of the benefits of obviously buying something or purchasing something compared to building something. But really where the value was in that event was kind of offering up these 6 key questions to consider when you're going through that process. So, overall, is what you're trying to build, is that a core competency of your business? Do you overall have the subject matter and technical expertise to go about building it? But to the other point, do you have the team in place to support that? Do you have the team in place to update it and keep it relevant for today's, ever-changing sort of pace of technology? What's the total cost of ownership? So a lot of folks, they typically think about, what resources are involved to go and build it, but again, they're not sort of paying attention or ignoring, or they are ignoring the total cost of ownership related to not only the hardware, the infrastructure, but all the other resources that might be necessary to keep that sort of investment going long-term, or that solution going long-term. Is the time to market faster with the cloud-based solution, or if you went and built something yourself? That's another kind of key question to ask, and overall, how valuable is that relative to our event today? And then finally, security, data control. I mean, these are all important concepts, especially with, you have sensitive merchant-related information, payments-related information within a system like this. So, for more details there, I would strongly recommend, if anybody's interested, checking out the webinar link below there. It's actually pretty quick. It's about a 17-minute long event. But again, we outline those questions in more detail. And overall, I think the takeaway to that point and on this slide is that some of these things, they may sound simple, but really they require planning, they require resources. Like the image there says, the devil's really going to be in the details. So you have to make sure that you're not only committed, but that you have the capability set and that you have the right team in order to execute on whatever that plan is. The technical resources that you have need to be strong enough to architect and code the solution. But then you also need to have the ability to scale it based on your business and obviously do so in a timely manner. So this slide is actually very interesting. So when looking at the CRM Marketplace, there's an organization out there called G2 Crowd, and they put out their grid report, which is something that they do quarterly. And the winter 2014 results are in, and this is what it looks like. So Salesforce, as you can see by the image here, they're a leader. You can read all the sort of stats, if you will, yourself, but they have the highest satisfaction rate. 84% of their customers would recommend the solution or the product to its peers. Many people feel that the company or the Salesforce CRM solution is headed in the right direction. A lot of folks enjoy the integrations, the customization aspects of it. For a lot of enterprise-level organizations or larger organizations out there, they like the flexibility and the depth of the platform, as the report had kind of pointed out. And I think what's really interesting is that many are actually calling it the backbone of their business. So that's really telling to kind of what they feel, in terms of how valuable the platform can be, and really from a business perspective, not only touching sales, but operations and customer service and all the aspects of it. I mean, it's really sort of serving as that foundation or the backbone in many cases. However, the challenge, or one of the downsides that was actually listed out in the report, as listed here, was the escalating costs of customizing it from the out-of-the-box product. So that's something that P2 specifically solves for, in that we're going to market with a solution that's built on this foundation of this platform. But again, it's been built for merchant acquirers, it's been built for the payments industry, and it's also configured uniquely around how you as an organization do business. So all of your unique reports, workflows, the way that your team needs to be set up in the system, that's all specific to you as an organization, and that looks different from any other of our clients. Some key takeaways, though, from the report. As you can see there, the average implementation time, again, that's across all CRM solutions out there, but the average implementation time was 2.4 months, and Salesforce specifically was slightly behind that at 2.6 months. So again, 2.6 months, 2.4 months. P2, however, With a client that is kind of following our configuration, our standard P2 CRM configuration approach, that's typically 4 to 6 weeks, so a lot quicker. And again, at the end of the product, or actually the end of that experience, you end up with a solution that's a lot more specific to how you guys operate, how you do business. It's built for the industry. And again, one small caveat there is that, when we talk about 4 to 6 weeks, that time frame, that is requiring clients that we're working with to be engaged. And to the point of the slide earlier about taking responsibility, it's not like we're just going off and doing something on our own for 6 weeks and coming back to you. So you're going to have resources and folks on your end that are sort of owning that process, and there's weekly check-in meetings and discussions that they're having with our team to get that all set up and running. But there's definitely a lot quicker of a time frame to get something like that in place. So just kind of staying in line with the theme today, a quick time to value, something that's super important for a lot of our customers. I think another interesting point I just wanted to point out is that 72% of all implementations, all CRM implementations out there, are led by an in-house team. And with Salesforce, that was actually a little bit less than that, it's about 64%. So again, in-house team means that someone at the client's location, they're the one driving that process themselves, so either IT or a project management group or some specific person within the end organization that's using CRM. 15% with Salesforce were led by a vendor's professional services team, so that's very similar to the experience with POS Portal and how we would operate with the client. And then 21% were led by a third party, so that could be a consultant, that could be some other value-added reseller out there in the market that is working with that client to get their solution up and running. And also interesting, or also sort of something to point out, was that the average payback period for Salesforce was a little bit, I should say, somewhat above the average, overall average of 10 months in terms of the payback period. So Salesforce came in at 15 months, meaning that based on whatever the investment was, after a period of 15 months, that investment had paid back itself. So, but overall, if you're interested in looking at the report, kind of understanding more about the other solutions out there in the market as well, feel free to access the report through the link here below. There's a little bit.ly link there. You can download the report. It's really, really helpful in terms of just understanding the marketplace out there. So really the next two slides are going to talk about the theme of, or the core sort of focus for today, talking about how you can both accelerate time to value, but also do that in a way that's specific to CRM, so how you can speed up that process. And when we actually say TTV, or time to value, this is the time between a business request and the initial delivery of that request. And really, regardless of the industry the business is in, whether you're in payments or merchant acquiring or some other industry, healthcare, government, financial services, really the goal of any business is to minimize time to value in order to really realize quickly some level of business value. So, there's a few different examples here that we listed out. Some of these are straightforward, some are a little bit more strategic in nature, but just right off the top, when we look at leading with architecture, many organizations, they're focusing more today on enterprise architecture, so basically providing flexibility and options beyond, I should say, the immediate business need. So there's definitely a bit of sort of upfront dialogue that goes into that approach, but it is a good way to remove possible future risks. And, that could also relate to things like not only application, but data, security, infrastructure, architecture, all those different technology sort of ideas. Talent and documentation, again, rather straightforward, but having a world-class team that has a really deep knowledge of your business or the industry, that's definitely going to increase the speed of delivery on certain projects. It's important, obviously, to keep them trained, make sure that they're up-leveling, and what is especially important is their understanding of solutions like this. So their understanding of mobile, their understanding of security, the cloud, maybe even data architecture for the particular scenario that might make sense there. Documentation, I think this is all straightforward stuff that we're all familiar with, but just having up-to-date documentation around business processes, policies, systems, this is going to accelerate not only the knowledge sort of dissemination that's going on in the organization, but it's going to make sure that your team understands how things work, and it's also going to improve the quality of whatever the deliverable is. Avoiding capital purchases, so when you go out and you buy things like servers and storage or network gear, in many cases, from our experience, that takes a lot of time, sometimes months, sometimes weeks. So by leveraging cloud solutions when possible, it's going to provide you with agility and that's something that every business needs regardless of who they are. Avoiding programming by leveraging pre-built apps and software. Again, many of you on the line today are probably familiar with this, but writing code takes time. There's sometimes bugs. It requires resident experts, developers, etc., to extend and sort of maintain that solution. So for many organizations out there, by sticking with out-of-the-box functionality and possibly asking whether customization is really going to be a strategic differentiator for the company, we've seen that that makes a whole lot of sense. And then finally, simplifying system integrations. So from our experience, the simpler the connection between your systems and processes is, overall, the faster you can move as a business. So, talking again about the platform, Salesforce, kind of having the centralized solution in place, really it makes sense in many cases to sort of retire these point-to-point integrations with some common platform that each solution can talk to that's sort of serving in between all of those. And, like the slide here says, think big, start small, move fast. So, the faster you can deliver, I should say, some component of the business request, the faster the business can identify whether or not there's true value in what they've asked for. And we totally get that, at the end of the day, the best ideas do not always produce the most value. So there's definitely a certain percentage of hits and misses. But, the ability to get something quickly into the hands of the business not only is going to build credibility for IT, but also allow the business to determine whether or not the new capability adds value or not. And if it doesn't, then maybe it makes sense to just stop and scrap the idea. If it does make sense and there is value, then maybe it makes sense to determine how can you take that to the next level, what's the next iteration of that. So in terms of CRM specifically, again, we've defined time to value. We've shared some ideas on how you can accelerate that. So with CRM, the time to value test is simple. From the time you begin deployment of a CRM solution, how long did it take before the solution delivered real business value as measured by the criteria or the goals that you've identified previously? I think we've all be rather familiar with the fact that in early 2000s, really regardless of the software, not CRM specifically, but any software, any discussion of rapid ROI or return on investment would have seemed crazy. After all, with a lot of these old school sort of on-premise solution software applications, the key resource really is, and I should say was, time. So that can include things like time to install the hardware, time to find staff or the folks to support something, time to deploy and configure the software. And after all that was pushed out, the deployment dates were pushed out as a result of that, and it just sort of took a lot of time to start reaping the CRM rewards that a lot of organizations would have been, or I should say would be expecting. So we all know that today cloud computing has changed that, or hopefully we all do. Now with applications delivered via the cloud directly to the user's desktop browsers, that sort of preparatory phase of setting up all that infrastructure, that's now been sort of bypassed. It's no longer the case. And, there's no longer really any excuses for waiting for value from CRM. But really, before you go about determining how rapidly you're gaining value from your CRM implementation, I think it's important to point out that you do need to understand what value actually means, as the slide here kind of points out. So this means understanding your goals, but also the goals of the CRM initiative. And just as an example, make my business run better or be more efficient, those aren't really well-defined goals. So it might instead be something like, the ones listed here: better sales conversion rates, better rates of customer service satisfaction, reduced customer churn. So overall, it's helpful to pick the ones that are going to bring the greatest value to your business, and really do so with the idea that you shouldn't be picking too many at first, because, again, 2 or 3 are going to really serve as a gauge to show how effectively the CRM application, I should say, is paying off in the early stages. And finally, the single biggest impediment to a quick return on a CRM investment is going to be the quality and the consistency of data. So, that's definitely going to be the case regardless of whether you're using an on-premise solution or you're relying on a cloud-based solution. So, the first of that issue is really related to consistency of data. So that just means that, your current database or wherever that information lives today, you want to have a set of format policies in place just so there's not a duplication of your customer records. A certain merchant could be entered in multiple different ways. So, you want to make sure that that's tackled and that, the data that's coming into the system from the get-go is going to be clean and and your team has made some decisions around how that process should be looking going forward. And there are definitely solutions that Salesforce and other platforms provide to assist with data deduplication. So that can be done both in a bulk fashion or with multiple records being tackled at once, or it can be done as new records are created, more of an ad hoc fashion. So again, that's extremely important in terms of speeding up a process like this, or a project, I should say, and getting to value quickly. So relevant to today's webinar specifically, we wanted to share an example of just some feedback from 360 Payment Solutions. So we have a quote here from Steve, the president, and they're kind of interesting in that they had worked with us in the past. We're really an early adopter of P2, and at one point they had moved away from the solution. I think they were going to go off and sort of figure out if they could do something as well on their own, and also get to value through an approach like that. And long story short, they came back to P2, and recently Steve shared or put together a letter with some of these sentences or lines in them. And we just wanted to share some feedback there. So he's talking about how it's a solution for ISOs regardless of their size. Really talks heavily about the platform, so the back end being Salesforce, how it's customized for ISOs. It's built on the most widely used platform or CRM system in the world. How many integrations exist already with third-party companies. And how they're doing a number of things here, from tracking tickets for their customers to tracking their sales team's pipelines, managing referrals from partners, assisting with their residual reports every month. And prior to P2, as I'm sure many of you out there experience, assuming that you don't have other solutions in place to tackle some of these things, a lot of folks, they work off spreadsheets and Excel, and overall there's a lot of laborious and manual processes there. So we just thought we'd include that from Steve. I think it's a great quote and a great bit of feedback relative to P2. And with that said, we're now going to dive into the demonstration. And really, when we think about P2, the core value breaks down in probably these 5 sort of buckets, if you will. So, lead routing and management. So where are leads coming from? How can we quickly, I should say, get them into the hands of a sales rep to make contact with the merchant, move the process forward? That then ties into automating that sales process. So, we can talk about how a product or service is being sold and what that deal or that opportunity looks like. We'll actually show an example of that shortly. Application processing, so, that sort of handoff that exists between a sales rep out in the field or in the office, and then getting that application packet or all that information to now someone in your back office for processing, or the boarding process itself with your processor, your ISO, whatever needs to happen from there, how they communicate that to your back office. Customer service, so there's a lot of value, especially when you have multiple relationships. You're working with more than just a single processor, to have one central portal or platform where all this information for all your merchants, regardless as to what portfolio they're in, where all that exists in one spot, and you can see all the details that go with them. And then finally, reporting, so the analytics, the dashboards, all the detail that you set up around the records themselves, and all the data, I should say, that's in the system, making sense all of that, being able to make better decisions quickly. So with that said, we are going to jump out of here, and we're going to hop into P2. So, in the interest of time, we're not going to have, really, I should say, time to jump through everything today, but, we do want to go through a process of a partner out there in the world. So this could be a bank, it could be some association or group that you're aligned with today that are submitting referrals or leads. Once that's received, get that into the hands of a salesperson, have that salesperson then advance through the process, leading up ultimately to the application process being tackled, and how that can be automated or made more valuable through some tools that we have here in P2, including possibly an electronic signature. So via DocuSign or EchoSign, we'll show an example of that. And then we'll round up real quick with an example of customer service. So if, let's say, a merchant then called into us, what we could do from there that's of value, and then reporting. So let's jump right into it here and get going. So here we are in P2. So this is our demo environment. So right now we're logged in as the administrator. We have sort of full keys to the castle. What we've done differently here in Salesforce or in this environment is we've kind of created a really simple process or tool to navigate across all your information. So we have this P2 inbox here that serves as the really straightforward way of getting to certain key information. So from your merchants to your deals or your opportunities you're working on, to recently submitted tickets, managing your agents and your partners, which are going to be only visible by those that are administrators in the system. And there's also a quick link section to go do any number of these functions here without having to navigate or do searches across the system. So again, in this example, we're going to be showing the process of a referral partner. So again, this could be anybody out there in the world, but in our example today, we're going to be logging in as Cindy Gray, and she is with the Alameda County Chamber of Commerce. And when Cindy logs into P2, her experience is a little bit different. You'll notice here that she has immediate access to this referral form that's displayed on her home page, and there's some reports down below as well. But really for Cindy, she has, let's say, a new merchant. It's a slice of life pizza, that she wants to now submit to our organization. And the contact there is Bill Johnson. So I've already done this ahead of time, so it should make the process a little bit quicker. So we're going to key in the information here, 123 Main Street. We'll use Sacramento, where we're headquartered, the state, zip code, phone number can be whatever makes sense, doesn't really matter. And one thing you can also do here is you can attach documents. So if she has a statement, if she has a copy of a voided check, whatever makes sense in this scenario, we can also do that too. But really quickly, when she hits submit, this new merchant referral or lead is now going to be submitted directly to P2. It's now in P2, I should say. And it's now accessible by other members of your team who might be now looking to get that in the hands of a salesperson. So we can see here these are all the recently submitted leads that Cindy's sent that are still in that lead sort of status. So there's value for a partner like this and being able to track all that. And we can definitely share more details around this approach for anybody on the line going forward. But let's now actually go back into just the role of the administrator for today. We'll keep it simple. But let's actually see where this lead ended up. So if we go into a list view here, and a list view is really just a way of organizing your information across different, let's just say, categories or methods. So if you notice here, we have a list view for the Alameda County Chamber of Commerce. So this is actually a partner. So there's really all the 11 leads that they've submitted to us are listed out here that are, again, still in that lead status, or sorry, just overall status. And what we can do is once we receive that, we can click into it. And there's other ways to assign these, but for the purpose of today, we're going to receive this. We can see who the referral partner is. We can see who the contact is. Right now, it's still being owned by Cindy. So what we want to do is change the ownership to one of our sales agents, Ben Davis. So based on me being the administrator or sales manager or someone with the appropriate access, I'm going to quickly hit the Assign Merchant to Agent button. And I'm just going to type in my salesperson's name, which is Ben Davis in this case. If you want, you can set an appointment on Ben's calendar. You can send him some notes. We can also send Ben an email notification in this example. And let's also say that we knew the product. So the product selection here, this is going to be customized by your organization, but it's just a way to drive what the specific product or service is that this merchant may be interested in. So let's just say that Cindy or somebody tipped us off and we knew that it was merchant processing. So we'll enter that as well. And when we actually save this, navigating back now to the merchant's record, a few things that we're going to see that are different. Number one, it's now an active opportunity because we've created that deal, which we'll look at in a second. And when we go down here a little bit further, we now see that a deal record has been created, which again we'll dive deeper into in a second. But more importantly, Ben Davis is now the account owner. So if Ben logged into his instance of P2, he'd be able to see all these records as well that have been assigned to him or that he had entered in directly. And the system also has this hierarchy built in where Mark Lynn is automatically dropped in as the sales manager across any of Ben's records because he's set up as the sales manager or a level above Ben in this case. So the one last thing I want to do real quick is just add an email address for Bill. And I forgot to do this earlier, so let's just do that right now. And now here, what I want to do is dive into the deal. So again, there's a lot of different sections, and for a lot of our customers, the page layouts themselves are unique and different, and they have their own custom fields and things that they've added that make sense and add value to their business. But there certainly are a lot of fields that are payments or merchant acquiring specific that we've enabled through this out-of-the-box solution. So when we actually, again, jump into the deal, really what these deal records are, or the idea of a deal, is that we know that ISOs and acquirers out there in the space, you guys are selling multiple products, multiple services, in many cases to the same merchant. So it didn't really make sense for us to build something where, to, let's say, track another opportunity, you had to go back and create something again from scratch. So for us, all you would need to do is just go in here within P2 and click create a new deal record once you're on the merchant's record. So in this case, we have a deal record for merchant processing, which again is for a slice of life pizza. So we can see all the unique stages here. And I mentioned that these are unique in that you're able to customize what these are. And this really serves two purposes. One, it helps the salesperson know based on the product, because again, your products that you're selling could have different stages assigned to them. But based on the product that the salesperson's now running with, they know what steps they need to follow. So there's that consistency or that standardization going forward. But it also allows you as the organization to run some very detailed reports around what's out there in your pipeline. So you can say, again, making some assumptions and taking a couple steps forward here. Let's say on this particular deal that we were currently in the application stage. Let's say that we felt the forecasted close date was the end of April. Forecasted monthly revenue was at least $50, so we'll just say it's 50 in this case. I mean, you'd be able to run a detailed report saying, I want to see all the deals out there in my pipeline that have a forecasted monthly revenue over X amount. Let's just call that $50 a month. Forecasted close date is the end of the month or the end of the quarter, whatever made sense. And all of those that are in the application stage for all my products or for just merchant processing, whatever that level of granularity was, you'd be able to report against that. And that's actually something that's pretty rare with a lot of clients that we work with that are coming from other solutions. So definitely valuable there. So here we are again. We're Ben Davis. We're on this deal record. We're moving this through the process. We're currently in this application stage, and up until this point, we may have been sending emails to the merchant. We may have been making notes that again relate to this deal record, creating tasks for ourselves like callback, Bill tomorrow, logging calls. We spoke with Bill yesterday. Here was our conversation. Whatever makes sense. And we can also be attaching documents. So if we click this attachment button, here on your computer or laptop, we're going to browse our local directories and find files to attach. And these could be documents that we maybe received via fax or had to scan in and now they're electronic. Or maybe they were just documents that were born electronically, like PDFs or Word documents that we're going to upload. And even on a mobile device, this experience is really clean and simple. So if you were on an iPad or an iPhone and you're accessing it this way, when you actually click this browse button, it'll actually pop up on your device the ability to pull from your existing sort of photo library or take an existing photo. So if you were out in the field and you had a sales rep with an iPhone or an iPad and they needed to get a copy of the voided check to you quickly, they can easily accomplish that task by using their phone, taking a picture here within P2, and then it's immediately in the system for everyone to access. And in our example today, we did want to show something that adds a little bit more value to this core solution. So this is another project, but it is, as you can see here in a second, it is going to be very specific to the end ISO organization. So part of that relates to obviously who the application is sort of with or who you're processing through as an organization. But at the same time, there's a lot of unique business requirements that go into a project like this, so that's what makes it unique for our customers. But the value is definitely there where you're looking to speed up that process, where you're taking on many deals per month, where you want to add value to the salesperson out in the field or in your office who is, let's say, having some difficulties with paper applications today or the process overall that might exist if it is electronic. So we can do things here like autofill or auto-populate certain fields or elements where we've already collected the data previously. Some other examples of what we can do with this is we can hard code certain fields or have default values listed. So we might say, for all of our applications, the ACH reject fee is always $25. So that can be something that we tackle that way. But overall, you can have certain field level validation. Again, you could have certain fields required. So before the salesperson actually was able to save this and then even generate the PDF, which is where we're mapping all these fields of data to your MPA or your PDF. Before that process is even done, they have to fill in a certain amount of fields. So that can be tackled. But in our example today, we're just going to move through this quickly and just generate the PDF. So in a couple seconds, it'll return us back to the deal record for this merchant. And now when we scroll down, we can see that there's not only an online application record, but there's also the PDF. So real quick, I'll just pull this up. So here we see this merchant processing application and agreement. You can see that whatever data we had collected, and again, this was submitted from our partner. So again, someone on our team, technically speaking, did not key this in. So this came in through a partner, but that made its way now onto the application. And for many of our clients, where something like this then makes sense, assuming that they have the ability to, or the relationship, or actually the business relationship squared away, they may be able to submit documents via e-signature, or I should say with an e-signature, to their processor. So we've enabled that from a technology perspective here in P2. So we've worked with EchoSign, we've worked with DocuSign. And what's different about what we've built here with DocuSign real quick is that many clients of ours are familiar with the process, I should say many of us in general, are familiar with the process of sending out different documents to be signed and creating different templates. And really all a template is just a way of telling DocuSign which, or I should say the person signing where exactly they need to sign on the document. So you might have one template and a different template, and in one template it's saying sign in the top left-hand corner, and then maybe that's on page 1, and then part of that is also signing on page 3 in the bottom right-hand corner. So that would be a template that you create for a particular document. So many again are familiar with the process of emailing that out to folks. So you have, let's say, the merchant's email address, and where you sell in a remote fashion, you have an inside sales team or folks that are selling again over the phone or in that capacity. It made sense, you would send out that to them via email. They would receive the email, access DocuSign that way, log in, view the documents, provide the signature, and then that comes back to you. But what we noticed is that a lot of our clients, a lot of ISOs specifically, were out in the field. They had salespeople that had now tablets, iPads, Android-based tablets, and it really didn't make sense to say, hey, go check your email. Let's say maybe your computer was in the back office, or maybe something else took up your attention while we were now collaborating on the application and going through this process. So what we enabled for clients that we work with, specific to DocuSign here in this example, is this ability to what we call sign now. So imagine, let's say you have a sales rep out in the field. They are going through this process. They've now collaborated face-to-face with the merchant on their iPad. They then hand over their iPad to the merchant. The merchant clicks the review document button. They could start sort of walking through the application, just verifying that everything looks correct. And as you notice here, there's a start or next button. So once they are ready to sign, all they need to do is simply hit that button. It'll then take them directly to the signature blocks on the document. Once they hit sign now, it'll actually drop in their name. So prior to this, I actually provided a quick signature example, but they can simply draw it with their finger on the tablet in this case, or they could type it in, whatever they prefer. And at that point, it's now done. We have the signature there, and they would hit the confirm signing button, hand the tablet back to the salesperson, and pretty much at that point, they're all set. So continuing on with this workflow, again, the salesperson now has collaborated with the merchant face-to-face. They have all the application documents that relate to that collected. It's all here in P2 as well. They have the application that's been completely filled in and signed, and that's also here in P2. So really, from Ben's perspective, he now wants to submit that on to the back office. So all he has to do is click this QA button, which for us represents some first level of either underwriting or quality assurance or boarding, whatever makes sense in our example. And you could do something here where you can present a simple checklist based on a product selection. So based on this product, it's just saying, hey Ben, have you collected a voided check, a signed application, the statement, a P&L, and it's also showing all the documents as well. But as long as Ben says, yeah, that's all been done, I confirm that that's all set and ready for processing. Once we actually hit submit, the deal is now in our back office. So really at this point, it drops into this unclaimed deal queue, which we'll look at real quick before we wrap up this part of the demonstration. So again, imagine someone on your team, they're working out of this queue. They can see all the deals that have recently come in, maybe who the agent was, who the product is, or what the product is, I should say, what the status is, what stage it's in, and simply come into the deal. It's really straightforward. Come in here and immediately, they want to claim the deal. And what this is going to do is apply their name to it. They'll have their photo show up as the customer support agent. And it's also going to start tracking the cycle time or the business hours. So you guys can actually see how quickly these deals are making their way through your back office from, let's say, the time they were submitted to once they're ultimately boarded or the deal is marked as complete, once you get back the mid possibly. So that was a quick example. I know I flew through that, but that was a quick example of really from sort of start to end, ignoring a few steps in the back office today that are going to be specific to your organization. Really from start to end, what that process looks like from a lead coming in to how it makes its way into the salesperson's hands, and then what they're able to do with it from there in terms of a deal record and kind of working out of that process. So again, the other two things I want to show in the interest of time here real quick are related to customer service. So let's just say that one of your customer service reps or your member of your team, they were sitting there in the office and they got a call from, I don't know, John Smith at 14 Below. And let's say 14 Below was a current client of yours. So what you'd be able to do is do a quick search, pull up the merchant record for 14 Below, and really in a matter of a few seconds there, if not less than that, you're now on the merchant's record. So, once you're here on the record for them, you could see all the detail that relate to them and their entire history with you. So any notes, who are all the contacts in the company, so, Ronald and Evan. We can see all the deals. So again, these are all maybe the unique products or services that we've sold to the merchant successfully in the past, or maybe they're still active and open. Recent activity history, we can see attachments, the customer service tickets, which I'll show in a second. But we can also see things like the terminal solution. So, what terminals have been deployed there? What activities do we have open? So a lot of value in just hovering over these items here, or obviously you can scroll down and see all the relevant detail as well. So in our example, we are going to create a new ticket. So we're going to hover over tickets and simply click New Ticket. And let's just say as an example today that the merchant had a question or a challenge with some new, I don't know, VX510 terminal that was deployed or made available to them or recently set up. So having trouble with VX510. So maybe there was reason enough to create a ticket for that. And they could put any details. I'm not going to, just for the purpose of today. But you can also set the origin, so maybe it came in through a phone call. And once this is actually done, again, we're going to create a ticket, or we just have now created a ticket on behalf of this merchant. And again, as you can imagine, this is going to show up in this queue here, so the submitted ticket bucket or queue, so we can access it there. But again, you want to have someone coming in, claiming this ticket. They can also assign it out to another agent of your team. So if there was some other customer service person who had reached or they worked with 14 Below previously, maybe it makes sense to assign it to them. If not, you can simply just claim it. And just like the deal record, there's different steps involved, but again, we're tracking the cycle time. We now have a dedicated support agent that's working this ticket. And really the value here, in addition to being able to push this through the process and kind of have transparency there, is that these folks are all receiving emails automatically about any changes to this ticket. So if John Smith or whoever it was, Robert or Evan, at the merchant's level, reached out to you, created a ticket, the ticket was then created within P2, you could have John, but also maybe John's spouse or the general manager of the location as well, receiving updates along with, and this is really valuable, along with the sales agent, possibly even the sales manager. So all these folks are being kept in the loop without any sort of manual intervention on your end. You're not having to go out of your way to send emails or reach out to them directly to let them know, hey, Alan, that merchant that you signed just last Friday, they've been having issues with their VX510 terminal. So a lot of value in just being able to bring these people into the loop automatically. And, assuming that this ticket's being resolved quickly, it's going from open to closed status. Once it is marked closed, everyone's going to be receiving that notification as well. So that's just one way that tickets can be managed here in P2. This is kind of what we built for a lot of our customers that are managing it and obviously working out of these different queues. And there's a whole bit of reporting that goes with this. I think that's a good transition to quickly show that. So from a reporting standpoint, let me show that one real quick. Customer support metrics. So within Salesforce or P2, reporting is probably one of the best sort of benefits to the platform, the solution. So as long as you have data in the system somewhere, there's the ability for you to run reports against it. And those could look many different ways. Here we have some year-to-date tickets requested by, so who's actually requesting the support, what channel is that coming from. There's closed tickets, tickets by severity, average time to close a ticket, average time to claim a ticket, when the tickets were open. So these are just a few examples. Really all a dashboard is just a combination of up to 9 different reports. And then a report itself can look any way that you sort of wanted it to, or it can be across any data. So there could be specific to certain things like sales or referral partner submissions. You could have some reports or metrics that relate to your application processing. So in this case, going back to our example, we can look at the active applications by stage, and we can see how everything breaks down across our pipeline. How many deals are currently in the application stage, who are the merchants, who are the sales agents that are working with those merchants. And we can also see things at a more granular level. So when we actually break things down by the product in terms of that deal, we can see things like which products have actually been selling. Why are we spending so much time focused on one product when it's the sort of lagger. And finally, from a reporting standpoint, these reports can all be created. They can be customized. Within P2, talking about, again, our theme today, quick time to value. There's probably a good 30 or 35 reports and dashboards that we make available to our clients. But by all means, we provide training. You're able to go in and customize and create those yourself. So you're fully empowered to go about doing that. And these reports themselves can also be emailed out or scheduled for delivery as well. So if every morning it made sense for your CEO or some member of your team to receive, let's say, a report or a dashboard, a pulse of the company, if you will, while he or she is having their morning coffee at their house before they're in the office, that could also be achieved as well. So I think that's going to wrap it up for today. Just from a demonstration standpoint, there's a lot that we probably have not, or I should say have not talked about or discussed. But for any items that make sense to dive deeper into, we're happy to. We just wanted to go through this quickly in the interest of time on today's event. And just to wrap up, if you're headed to ETA next week, please stop by. We'll be at booth 520. We definitely look forward to meeting you. And if we haven't already set up a meeting, that might make sense as a good next step from here. And just in terms of my contact information, feel free, please, to reach out to me over the phone, via email. I know we had some challenges with this event. That's why I recorded this sort of second segment of it. But please feel free to contact me if you have any questions, anything that you wanted to see from here, or just overall discuss P2, some of the specifics that we've discussed today. Thank you for your time. Take care. Bye-bye.